the thing is, nothing is hard in life. I think we only find things hard when we really don't want to do them and we feel a little bit forced. But I think when you enjoy things, like, nothing is hard. Like, if you find a way to do something and enjoy it, like, it's fun.
Hola, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Reliable HVACR podcast. I appreciate everybody for tuning in, watching this live. If you guys joined the live chat, I appreciate you guys interacting with me and the guest. If you guys are on YouTube, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to the new channel and help it out. Help the podcast out by wherever you listen to on Spotify, Apple Podcast, making sure you leave a 5-star review, hopefully, and get the podcast out to more people. And I want to give a quick shout out to the sponsors that help support the podcast. If you guys are interested in the software that we use to help my business, you can go check out Jobber. If you guys follow the link in the description or go to getjobber.com/reliablehvacr, you will get a free trial and discount and see if it can help you out. I also want to thank VETO Pro Pack, best tool bags out in the market. You guys already know I'm a VETO person. I have a VETO setup for everything in my van. So if you guys want to check out the link in the description, you can go to their website, go see all the bags that they have, go check out my customer profile that's there, and show your support. And I want to thank our newest sponsor, BOSCH. They are changing the game with their inverter heat pumps. BOSCH IDS Lite 15-SEER system has it all, combining quality inverter technology and standard efficiency at an affordable price point. The outdoor unit is available in 24K, 36K, and 60K BTU capacity, and it can be paired with either a wall or ceiling air handler. Gives you plenty of installation options. The BOSCH IDS Lite will be equipped with a low GWP R54B refrigerant by this fall. Visit boschhomecomfort.us to learn more. On today's episode, we have Eduardo the HVAC Assassin. Now, I've been following this guy for a long time on Instagram. I've seen him doing, some really cool stuff up on rooftops, fixing shit. And I've seen him transition into the control side, which is really where he's in his comfort zone now, because it makes him uncomfortable, if that makes any sense, right? He's a guy that likes to be challenged, likes to figure out things, and likes learning new things. So here he is telling the story of the stuff that he's done over his career and what he enjoys now in the controls. If you guys are interested in any control side of the HVAC, doing industrial type of work, hooking up your laptop and programming stuff, you can do that in HVAC, and go follow him. I'll leave all his information in the description, the Instagram where you can find him at, and enjoy the episode. You worked today, didn't you?
Yeah, I'm actually on call right now. Well, it's weird because I volunteered for a specific call, and I'm also on call. So no actual on calls came in, but the volunteer call was there, and I completely forgot about it till this morning.
Oh, okay, yeah, because you're like, on call shouldn't be that bad, and then you're like, I'm at work now.
Yeah, I didn't realize it till 1 a.m. I was like, oh, wait, I got a call tomorrow.
Was that for the same thing, the controls, whatever you do?
It was actually a fire smoke damper inspection. So we trigger all the dampers, or they trigger them from the alarm panel, and I just make sure they actually do what they're supposed to do.
You test them and stuff?
Mm-hmm.
So how have the trolls been lately on the Instagram and stuff? Because I always watch your stuff. You and Tim DeStasio, you get a lot of hate. I don't want to say hate, but flack sometimes for the information you guys put out. Are they still trolling you?
I mean, yeah, but I do think I spend way more time than I should responding, but in part is because I was there too. Sometimes I believe things that weren't true, and I just didn't take the time to do the research. I just felt like if it didn't make sense to me, there was nothing to it. And then slowly through the years, the more I progress, the more attention I pay, I realize that a lot of it makes sense. A lot of it does make sense. You just need to understand why it's happening. So sometimes when I respond, even though I respond a little harshly sometimes, is really me trying to let them know, like, hey, just actually dig into it. Actually research it. Don't watch someone else like myself talk about it.
Yeah.
Go read the information. Go read the manuals. Go read the. I know everybody hates engineers, but at the end of the day, they're putting together all this equipment that we work on. So,
Yeah,
go read what they have to say.
I think Tim had said that one time because somebody was complaining that some equipment wasn't keeping up, and he's like, or that person was like, who are these engineers at this, and this, right? But like, I don't know, is your building, like, how tight is that building? How insulated is it? Like, is everything else, because we have that issue here, but like our AC works pretty well, but I know our door is messed up. There's gaps, there's heat that comes in, there's a bunch of other stuff you don't think about, but you're always blame, the AC unit or the tonnage or whatever it is, because I've run into that too, where I recommend something for heat infiltration, right? Because we're going around. I don't get super technical. I don't like to do the whole manual J and all that stuff. I've learned that in school, but like I don't actually use it a lot for what I do because I do service. But I'll tell them, like, look, you got all this issue here. You got issues with your duct. And then another company will come in and be like, oh, you just need a bigger system. And I'm like, all right, yeah, do whatever you want to do.
But I think that's also crucial. I think it's okay for us not to do certain things because it's not part. Like, I do service as well, and I've been doing service for most of my life. So I don't go into manual J's and stuff, but that doesn't mean I just make guesses. Like,
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. I was working on a unit not too long ago where they had a bunch of airflow issues. So I went to a bunch of VAVs. I corroborated we were not getting enough air as far as my VAV calculation. I don't have a hood to test all of that. But what I told them, instead of just saying, hey, like, you're good, or you know what, just put a bigger unit, I was like, we need to get someone to come over here and do a real TMB, check the entire building, check for airflow everywhere. And if I need to make adjustments to my program to match what they're actually reading, we can do that. But I'm not going to just start randomly changing my program to make it fit because that's what they want. So I don't know how to do it, or I don't have the tools to do it, or the time to want to dive into it, but we can hire someone else to come and do all that stuff and do it properly. And you're 100% right. And people want to skip that all the time, and it just messes. It makes things worse.
I've had so many issues where it's like, the AC is working or it's oversized or something like that, and it's cooling. I'm like, no, it's working, but it feels ugly in the building. I'm like, we got to go, check everything else. Like it's not always like the AC unit itself. It's usually like heat, like I said, heat coming in, escaping, or, like we have a lot of restaurants that have big windows. There's a bunch of variables in that. And like what we're talking about right now is like, I've always told people I try to stay like in my lane in service, kitchen, restaurant work, stuff like that. And if it's anything that needs like an expert on something like duct or anything else, I tell them, like, call somebody else or have somebody come in that knows what they're talking about. But like you said, I try to inform myself or learn after work about all that kind of stuff, just so I know like a base of like, could be this, it could be that, look for this, look for that, and inform the customer,
No, of course. And all of it comes together. I mean, I'm not saying not to learn certain things. I'm 100%.
Well, like I never used to look at, honestly, the duct and stuff like that. I never used to even think about that. Now I do. Now I check, static pressure, different types of deals. Cause like all that, if there's like so many things wrong with the system, like the design or anything like that, or something failed, or, you have an issue elsewhere, like airflow or anything, that system, you can get it working as great as you can, as perfect as you can. Everything's set up real good. And then, like I said, the building still feels really bad.
Yeah. I was lucky. When I started with ductwork. I went to school, and it's a long story, but I think I put a post about it once. I got kicked out of school, and I And while I was kind of in between, I figured, you know what, I've already been doing like a few months of this. Let me see what it's all about. So I started applying, and I got a job doing ductwork. Um, and I feel really lucky because I got to see a side that I think a lot of people that go straight into service or even installs never really get to experience, like full duct jobs, like from start to finish,
Oh
especially
yeah.
on large applications. I used to do a lot of public sys, and I realized how crucial it was to have good airflow. If you've never seen it,
Mm-mm.
if you've never worked with it, why would you look at it? So I think I've transitioned from my perspective is been so valuable. I went from ductwork to installs to commissioning to service. So I've been able to touch every little part of at least what I do majorly now in a
Yeah.
very intimate aspect, in a very intimate way. So I'm very familiar with a lot of it, even if I don't master all of it anymore. You know what I mean? Because I can't do a
No.
transition anymore to save my life.
No,
I tell
like
you that.
I learned all that early on too. Like I went to school for it, so they taught us to do the duct. We do a duct board. I know some people give me crap because like everybody's about metal and stuff. Like we have a lot of duct board here. That's what I learned to do. That's how I learned to make my duct work, my 90s offsets. I learned how to do all that, and they taught us to do it. You know what they were saying, the old school way, right? Cut it out yourself, build it yourself. Don't rely on a supply house to help you with that kind of stuff. Like learn how to do it. So I learned it that way. I never had to do it in the field, except recently. Actually, I had a whole return duct. It's made of duct board. I guess it got wet because it's an RTU. When the drain overfills, those things get full of water, and if it's duct board, it's just gonna collapse, fall apart. And I had to rebuild one on the spot, so I actually got to do one recently. But like I never do that kind of work, but I learned how to do it, and I always go back to like what I learned in school for it. Even if it's not like what I do, it's not, I don't even honestly want to do that kind of work. I'll stick to service, but yeah, you got to learn how everything works because it's not just because I was gonna say like when I started, the guys that I went or rode along with, sometimes they were doing stuff that I was not or was taught not to do. Right? They're just adding Freon. They're just adding, doing this or like bypassing things, and I'm like, oh, like shouldn't be doing that. This podcast is presented by Local. Local works tirelessly to help HVAC contractors rank higher on Google. They use an attack methodology to make sure that contractors dominate their local service areas and increase their market share and generate higher revenue. Reach out to Local at localhq.com/reliable. Mention me or the Reliable HVACR podcast, and you'll get 2 months of SEO for free.
Yeah, and the thing is, I think it's also really hard to stay away from that because I remember when I started too, I've always been very anal about things. Like even my tools. You look at my tool bags; they're very organized. Everything's like on its spot.
My
I've always been
brother's like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I ran into a lot of things at the beginning where I would like try to do superheat and subcooling, and I had technicians with a lot of experience come and tell me that it was a waste of time. That I was just like I wasn't doing anything good. And look, no hate to them, but I tell you this. I am in the position that I am now. They're still exactly where they were 18 years ago when I started. The same exact company, the same exact position.
Yeah, and
I think that says something, but I don't know. Maybe it doesn't.
And I'm with you because I just had this conversation with the guys and my dad and stuff. And I think I had it on another podcast or one of my videos, something like that. Like, and I've mentioned this before. When I started, nobody was purging with nitrogen. Nobody like some guys I rode with didn't even have a micron gauge, right? Vacuums were like, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever it is, right? And I'm like, I was taught to do 500 microns at least. I was taught to purge. I was taught like all this stuff. But like I'm not the lead tech, right? I'm just the apprentice or the guy that rides along, the helper, whatever it is. And I was doing like you said, like I knew about superheat, I knew about subcooling, I knew about temperature difference, the TD, the deltas, all that I'm trying to check, and they look at me crazy and they're like, you're just wasting time here, right? They just want to feel the line cold and we're good. So I totally get it, dude.
And I think it's very easy to fall down that side of things, because sometimes, especially at the beginning, like let's say you have an actual TXV that's bad. I know most of the time it's not a TXV, but let's say you do, right? And you're doing all your checks, and let's say you're relatively new to this, so you're checking your subcooling and something's not making sense. You're leaning that way, but you don't know. And then an experienced tech comes along, and he doesn't care about any of that, but he has seen that specific type of unit have that fault enough times where he spots it in 10-15 minutes, and you spend 2 hours, and you do feel a little bit like, holy crap, did I really just waste a lot of time? But the more you do it, the more you realize that, sure, sometimes it might feel a little bit like a waste of time, but for the most part, you're always going to be on point on your diagnostics, and they're not. They're going to be changing parts sometimes that don't need to be changed. So it adds up, but it takes a while to get used to the idea that, yes, you're going to be slower at first.
Oh yeah,
and that's okay.
I took forever on calls, and it used to piss me off, but it is what it is, right? You go through everything, and then I was confident at the end of the day that I did what I could, right? As far as like the whole parts thing, I actually had one recently, and I have guys that work for us that have bad habits. I'm trying to like, tell them to look for this or look for that, because they kind of need, it's hard to train an older guy, an experienced tech. So like usually when we get guys that are experienced or anything like that, I just tell them, I try to give them like the shortcut answer, right? Like one guy, it was recently that they condemned a TXV on a unit. Now that TXV was acting up. It didn't rub out or anything. Like it was a mechanical TXV. Everything was fine, but the power head was removable, right? So I'm like, okay, more times than not, I'm just gonna let you know, the power head gives out before the actual valve gives out, right? So I was like, let's change out the power head real quick. Sure enough, we did it, did everything that we needed to do, started it up, and it worked, right? So I'm trying to tell him like, yes, it might be the TXV, but it might just be this part, or it might be, something simple versus like, condemning a whole, or like you said, part changing,
Yeah. And it's funny because eventually also with experience, you get to pick up some things. Like I remember I worked in a bunch of carriers where that power head that you're saying would constantly lose its charge on the bulb. And that was what was taking the power head out. So
I had a bunch of carriers that did that.
Yeah. And you have no idea how many times, and maybe this is not going to sound great, but someone would condemn a TXV. They would send me to do the job. And what I would end up doing is get there with a TXV, and instead of doing the whole thing, I would just take the power head off, put a new power head on, be done with it.
Oh yeah. I've done that. Like I've done that a couple times too. Or even that instance, the guy ordered the whole TXV, and I was like, are you sure? Right. Cause like then I got sent, cause he got busy, and I had time that day, and I was like, okay, well, I'll go. And it was me and my brother that ended up doing that call. And I was like, no, let's just change the power head. But I was gonna say I hate going after people more times than not, because I don't trust a diagnostic from somebody else, honestly. So I'm gonna go, if I go to finish a job for somebody, I'm gonna end up taking a little bit longer because I want to do another check of it, right? I'm like, I can't, I just can't. I did it once recently, and it didn't bite me in the ass. It bit the customer. I'll tell you this. We had an out of town call because like we do a lot of restaurant work. So there was a location that we don't service, but it was like 6 hours away. And they really wanted us to go out there and fix a few things. And then one of the things on the list was we have a AC unit that has, I don't know if it was 1 or 2 bad compressors that was diagnosed, right? I'm like, are you sure? I was like, who checked it? This and that. I got out there and I did what they told me to, because I did a quick check, and I'm like, nothing's grounded. Like, are you sure? Right? And they were stubborn. Just change it. We already know. We already got it checked, this and that. So I was like, okay. I changed the compressor. I went to start it up, and we had a huge ass leak in, or we did our pressure test and all that. We had a huge ass leak in the microchannel. Right? And I'm like, okay, who the hell checked it? Right? So whenever I don't, do another check on it, like if I go behind somebody else, it always like ends up being not even what they told. Yeah, so then I was like, all right. And you know, they paid us because they were stubborn about it. They're like, we just want you to come and change it out. So I was like, all right. Um, but every time I go behind somebody, I have to go and do a whole like check on it. I can't just take their word. Even if it's somebody that I know, somebody that I don't know, like I still do it.
I know I'm the same way. I have gotten over the years, I don't know if it's a good thing or not, but sometimes I spot some techs that I feel like I can trust. And occasionally when it's them, like if I go out to do a
Oh
repair that
yeah.
they diagnose, sometimes I just do it because 9 times out of 10 is right, you know. But yeah, for the most part, if I don't know who did it or if it's certain people that I know that did it, I just double check because I'm not about to spend 4 or 5, maybe 8 hours of my day doing something just
I've
to
been
find that when I'm done is not the right thing.
Yeah, and that's something I learned early on, you know, doing that because then they would, you know, being new, they would diagnose it and then they would send me out to do the part or whatever it was, and then it still wouldn't work, and I'm there all day like struggling and stuff. So I learned early on not to trust them, but that's just me. I'm real like, are you sure? Are you sure? You know, it's something on the tech. But like I was saying, we had a conversation recently because it's the way I learned. It's the way my brother learned because he went to the same school. Like you said, the superheat checking. I go as far as checking like the temperature difference, the static pressures, like whatever it is that you need to do, and keep all that in mind. And I've had companies recently that go out after me because you know one of our customers wants like a second opinion and stuff like that. And I don't want to talk bad about any company or anything like that. I'll never call them out or anything like publicly, I guess.
Just do it, man. Just do it. Just do
they
it.
were out there changing parts, telling them like, oh, it is like I condemned one because the compressor was going out, and it was just one of those that it was over. It was an older unit. It was just overamping. It wouldn't keep up. It tripped the breaker a few times, and we cleaned it out. I checked everything. I tried to balance out the superheat as much as I could. And I'm like, this it's on the way out. The fins are in horrible shape. Like there's a lot of things against it, right? Where it's like you might want to just buy a new unit. This other guy comes in. No, we can fix it. This and that. He like ripped out a lot of the digital controllers and stuff on the condensing unit. It was a walk-in cooler. And then he ripped out some safeties. I'm like, you kind of need those safeties, right? I wasn't about to rip out all the sensors and stuff. And he made it more mechanical. It worked for like a day, and then the compressor just completely died. I was like, I told you, right? So the only reason I'm so confident with my work is just because like I take the time to do it. I don't care if it, like you said, if somebody's like, oh, you're wasting time doing all that. That's like you said, that's how I am where I am now because of the way that I take my steps, take my time, and do all that. And I want the newer guys to realize that, you know, don't fall into like the peer pressure. If they're rushing you, if they're telling you beer can cold, whatever it is, you know, stick to what you know. And like you said earlier about don't listen to us. Fact check everything you hear, right? I don't care if it's like Ty Brenneman. I don't care if it's Craig Migliaccio, you know, kind of fact check it or watch different people, make sure it's all the same information. That's kind of the way I go about it. And then read manuals, you know, literature from the manufacturer too. Today's episode is also brought to you by NAVIEN. If you haven't seen it yet, NAVIEN has entered the HVAC space in a big way with the new NPF hydro furnace. This hydronic forced air furnace delivers industry-leading variable capacity operation from 15 to 100% in both natural and propane configurations. You can learn more at navieninc.com. And DIVERSITECH, they simplify your work. They have everything that a technician needs to get a job done. I do want to point out that they do have a Simplify Your Summer Challenge. I will leave all the information in the description. If you go over to their Instagram, this challenge is basically a chance to win an ultimate HVACR bundle with over 25 unique products from their DIVERSITECH lineup. This includes Hillmore, Swoosh, the spin bits, they have the Pro thermostats, they have the Master Care cleaning solutions. They have so many products. All you have to do to enter is share your work with at least 3 products from any of their lineups in a reel or post, and tag them and include the hashtag simplify your summer. So go check that out, go enter, and thanks again for sponsoring the channel and doing this awesome summer giveaway from DIVERSITECH.
Actually, like, hopefully this doesn't start like a whole thing on your comment section eventually when you put this up, but like the whole video that I made about energy efficiency by shutting the unit, not shutting it down, but like raising the temperature during
that was another
hot,
hot topic. Yeah.
So I'll give you something on there. When I first looked into that, I was actually looking into it to prove myself. Well, at the time I thought I was right, but I was trying to prove the fact of keeping just one temperature all day for energy efficiency, because everybody told me that. Every time I ran into technicians, they said that in HVAC, HVAC talk, you go through that and you look at the question, people who have asked that, the answer for the majority of the text is always like, just set it and leave it, set it and leave it. I spoke to a couple people on Instagram that I respect a lot that said, set it and leave it.
Okay.
So when I first went into it, I went looking to corroborate that. I wanted to prove that right. But the way I try to prove right things is not by finding information that confirms my bias, is by finding information that contradicts it and seeing how strong that information is. But what I ended up finding is not only was all the information overwhelmingly on the side of energy efficiency by putting the temperature up a few degrees, but there was also no information on the other side of it. There was like no research papers, no peer-reviewed research or investigations. There was nothing on the other side but blogs and people talking about it.
Oh yeah.
So when I saw that, I was like, okay, I'm sorry, but I don't care how much I want the other thing to be true. It's just not. So then I posted that video about it with a thing, and I did not expect the response I got. But yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the ones I had seen, but I think we I had talked about it with the guys on the other show, but I think I had asked them like what do they do and stuff like that. Like I just know from experience what I've done and what it's worked or what hasn't worked. Obviously turning off the system is the worst thing, because I did that one time on vacation. I just turned it off. I'm like, oh, I'll save some money, right? That thing, and it was a 2-story house. That thing took forever to cool back down.
Yeah, not only that, plus you probably had moisture embedded in those walls for days and days to come.
I'm in Texas, so yeah, the humidity, the heat, everything. So yeah, probably a lot of moisture.
Yeah.
You can.
No, so I want to clarify something. I don't know. I thought I did during those videos, but maybe I didn't. So I understand, and I am fully supportive that when you're talking about efficiency of climate control, you're better off setting it and leaving it. Mm-hmm. That's just the best case scenario.
Oh yeah.
Or if anything, raising it 1 or 2 degrees, and that's
for
it.
Comfort and all that. Yeah.
Right. But when you're talking about energy efficiency, even doing what you did, the only way to know for sure would be to actually do the calculation and find how many kilowatts you used once it came back on. But all the research that I found, they did the numbers. They would shut equipment off, they would raise temperatures, and they would leave temperature the same. And when you added it all up, when you added the amount of runtime hours, the energy usage across all of them, you were better off turning off the equipment while there was no one inside, even if it took a lot longer, even on spaces that were not properly insulated, because at the end of the day, you're not running the equipment. And that's what people don't understand. I think sometimes people are mixing it up, because like high efficiency systems, not so much 2-stage systems, but like the high efficiency ones that have inverters, that have a compressor that pretty much runs all the time, just like, from a lower frequency to a higher frequency, or with DC volts or whatever. Those are different. Those are meant to run pretty much all day to maintain temperature. But you're talking about 2 completely different animals. That one, when no one is in the house, when there is no load, it automatically sets itself back. So even though you're maintaining a certain temperature, you're only maintaining that temperature for the space and the things in the space, not the load of the people. Because you also have to account that when there's no one in the house, your load is much less than when you have 5 people in your house, or 10 for that matter, or whatever.
People,
you know, and
yeah,
people
people
are
in the
low.
house, the doors opening and closing, you know, all that stuff.
All that changes things, and it's unequivocally the unit is just going to run less, and it's going to use much less energy if it doesn't have to run all day.
That's like you said, that's the hard part to understand, because like me, I was talking more like on comfort, I guess, right? Like
right. No,
turning
comfort wise,
yeah, if I turn it off, and I mean it saves me some money because I'm out, you know, for the week or whatever it is. When I get back, turning it on is a pain in the ass, because like it's gonna take all day or whatever to cool, and I'm gonna be there hot. So there is a comfort, like you said, comfort versus like efficiency. And that's something I've tried to explain to like the restaurant owners and stuff like that, because they also want to turn it off and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, that's cool, but like maybe we'll set you on a schedule, right? That is when it's like overnight, certain hours, you know, it's off, this and that.
Sometimes what you could do too, especially in commercial buildings, one of the best ways to tackle this, and that way you give them a little what they want, which is to save money on the energy bill, and a little of what makes sense, because you're also going to get nuisance calls when the temperature does not coming down, and they're like, hey, my AC is hot, and you tell them, well, yeah, you had it off the entire for whatever many hours. But what you could do that I think would work is, one is smart setback. Smart setback is genius, because if you can have a program, whether it be on a thermostat or a controller, that learns let's say your on time is at 7 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
But your system knows that it's not going to hit temperature by 7 if it doesn't start 3 hours earlier. Then it'll do that on its own. All of those little things will make a huge difference. But another big one is, aside from smart setback, it would be, instead of completely shutting it off, especially on commercial equipment, you could set it, for example, where the fan runs continuously all day, and then when it's after hours or unoccupied, the fan cycles. You're saving energy there, and you're not completely shutting the equipment down, but you're also preventing wear and tear on the belt during the day, because you're not starting that belt, and you know the belt slips a little bit on a motor that has a belt, if it has a belt. So all those little things, they add to it. You know, these energy efficiency standards, they were not made there to make us waste more money. You can hate them, you can dislike them, and say that they're trying to just do bad things, whatever. That's fine with me. But at the end of the day, they gain nothing by us saving on the light bill. You know what I mean? If anything, make us waste more money, not less.
Yeah,
but you can test that in your home too.
It's it should. It's a whole it's a whole thing. Like they want to save money here and there, and it's, you know, you gotta see what you can do for them. But like, yeah, like that's the whole thing with me, is like they turn them off overnight, but then like they don't turn them on until they get there, and I'm like, that's not gonna work. You're gonna complain in the morning that the AC is not working when it's like you just turned it on. So yeah, I was trying to tell them.
What I tell friends, sorry to cut you off. What I tell friends, and what I personally do myself, is like on days that I know I'm gonna be home a lot, like I might go in and out. Those days my AC stays at a certain temperature. When I know no one's gonna be at home, I usually have a smart setback, so that about the time we're gonna go home or head home, or someone's gonna be home, it starts actually like an hour ahead of that. And because it's got the smart setback, it starts like 2 hours before that, probably.
That's what we have. Like during the day when everybody's at work, it goes up like 2 or 3 degrees.
Right.
And then an hour before everybody comes home, it goes back to it. So I have that too, and it's worked out fine.
Yeah. And that's another thing too. I think I don't want to, I think some people thought I was talking about going up like 10 or 15 degrees or something insane. I'm not. I'm talking about.
Okay, I'm curious. What do you set yours at?
I would say 5 degrees at most. Oh, mine?
Yeah.
Mine is
like what is your set at?
I'm usually at 75 when I'm home.
Okay.
When I'm not home, I'm 78. So it's 3 degrees.
That's the same thing we do. 77, 78. Because some people, last time I think I brought it up in one of my streams, everybody sets theirs like to 65 or something, and I'm like, oh, I can't do that.
Yeah,
I don't want to do that. And then like, I don't know, because you're in are you in Florida?
I'm in Florida, yeah.
So you
but
get
it also,
I don't know, you get the humidity and stuff. Like it's the same as Texas, kind of.
Yeah, it's super humid, but I also think it's relative, because sometimes depending, I've had the same exact thermostat in one house, like in some of my houses, like I'll have the same thermostat.
Yeah.
And then on one thermostat, 75 feels good, but on the other, it doesn't. But when I check it with like my temperature, my actual temperature tool, my temperature sensor, then I'll notice that maybe they're a couple degrees off or whatever. But instead of adjusting them or whatever, I just set them at whatever's comfortable in that house, if that makes sense.
I'm comfortable
Yeah.
at 75 and I'm good.
Yeah. And then sometimes like my girl, sometimes she's good with 75 and sometimes she's too hot, so she'll put it down to like 72. And I don't matter, so it doesn't matter. Like, who cares what I feel? It's all about her.
I was gonna say mine does the same thing. She'll drop it down a few degrees, and I'm like freezing in there. I don't know. I'm used to being outside and stuff, so I'm okay with the little warmer, you know.
Yeah. No, I think so. Me too.
So
well, much less now. So I'm becoming a bit of a bitch. I'm not gonna lie. Since I went to controls
with the heat.
Yeah, and that's also lie on you controls, guys. You're all bitches.
Yeah. I was gonna say that I'm getting the same way, just getting older. I'm having helpers now or anything like that, and I'm like, no, you go up there. I'm not gonna go up there. I'm gonna stay behind, and I'll just help you out. You know.
Yeah, like today when I was doing those fire damper inspections, I had someone opening tiles for me and setting up the ladder and everything. And it's funny because back when I was doing it and I saw guys like that, I was like, what a prick. But I'm like, fuck it. It is what it is. Like if I can get away with it now.
Yeah, I feel like I can keep doing it, like physically, like I'm fine, right? But it's just, I don't know. I don't want to get tired like that. Like you get so many long days in your career. I think you can earn it at the end when you're like, no, let the apprentice do it, right? Let the young guy do it.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, like you said, sometimes I have communication issues, and when I have communication issues, I don't like working with people because I feel like they slow me down. So when I do that, for example, I have my ladder and I just run around with my ladder, open ceiling tiles or whatever out of it. So I'm all for doing it.
I do have those moments too, because like even during the summer, sometimes I have a bunch of calls to get through. I have even maintenance. Some of our customers schedule their maintenance, and it comes out at weird times. And then my dad's like, no, you didn't take anybody with you. You didn't take a helper. You didn't take your brother. I'm like, no, I don't want to talk to somebody right on the drives or at the job site. I just want to do the work. And I don't know if it's good or bad. That's just the way I get sometimes. And like you said, I don't want to be around people sometimes. And I'd rather do more physical work than have somebody come and help me sometimes. It's just, that's why I said, I know I can still do it. It's just, sometimes I want the help. Sometimes I don't.
No, I'm the same way. Sometimes like there's certain things I just honestly don't care to do. And I just get help if I need it. But there's things that I'd rather do it myself because I feel like people just get in the way or I have to explain too much or whatever. And don't get me wrong, I love teaching. Like, yes. I had an apprentice on when I was in Miami, and I brought him up really fast. I taught him a lot of things. I actually think, like, I don't even think he should be making apprentice money right now, even though he still hasn't even finished his first year. I think he's right now much better than some full techs I've met. His only flaw is that he came straight into controls from, like, he studied software. He did something with, it wasn't IT. It was something with computer science. I can't remember. And then he took the course for controls, or he's still in the course for controls. And then he found this job through that course, like an internship type of thing. So when it comes to tools, even using a drill, he has a really hard time. But I think that stuff is not rocket science. You'll eventually get it. The more you do it, the more you.
I wasn't even mechanically inclined when I started. I didn't know how to use power tools or anything like that. And it's funny because I don't like asking for help. So like I didn't even learn how to use some of the tools like on purpose because I was like, no, I can do it with my screwdriver. Or I can do it with this. Like I used nut drivers and screwdrivers, hand tools for the longest time until I finally went out and bought like some power tools when I felt comfortable. It takes time because you're not used to it.
Yeah, no, I'm a little more, I don't know, I guess, like I like trying everything and anything. Yeah. So I remember when I first started, I do remember like trying to use the drill and like screw slipping on me a lot, especially when I'm trying to hang round dog.
Yeah.
and then the screw would just drive out on me.
Oh
But I
yeah.
can't remember exactly when it happened. But at some point, I just remember being able to do next, next. Now, could I
I
still do that
guess
right now? I don't know.
I guess I would get frustrated like you said when that would happen. But my dad was always like, just get it done, just do it. Like, and that kind of seeped in a little bit over time. And I'm like, screw it, just go for it. So that's how you learn.
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. You can't be scared. You gotta just go for it. And
Well,
I'm
that's
definitely not afraid to try new things. I'm
well
always like,
that's good. That I in his first year, if he's doing that well, because sometimes, like I said, I see guys out here, just on the conversations that I had with my dad and stuff. Like these are older techs that try to come in and do some of the work that we do, and like I have to go back behind them and fix the stuff that they did. And that's always been my thing. Like I got into this when I was 20 to 21, something like that, and
how
I
old are you right
knew.
now?
Huh?
How old are you right now?
I always have to think about it. What are we, 2024? I'm going to be 37.
Okay, we're the same age.
Oh, really? So I've
Yeah,
been
well,
in
I'm
this
37. So,
I've been
but
in
yeah,
this 17 years, doing this straight, basically, because we started our business at the end of the year too. So like it's coming up on 17 years, and I was always a young guy that, like you said, they might not, or they might look at you funny, but like I felt like I knew more than most people,
hmm
and the only thing that hurt me was experience. Like you got that guy in controls doing what he's doing in less than a year. You said, right?
yeah. He doesn't even have a year. He's really good, especially on the software side, which could be because he came from already studying computer related stuff. But I think he's more than that. He's just I think he's just a smart guy. He's like
Some
he picks
guys,
up things
yeah,
really fast.
some guys are just meant for this because like sometimes I can't even explain what I'm doing, but I'm like I fixed it. And then some guys, if they have a good mentor, training, all that stuff, all that helps. So I feel
Yeah,
like anybody can do it. You either it's either natural for you or you just take the time to learn the books.
yeah, no, for sure, for sure.
So real quick, how did you start? You mentioned school. Did you want to get into HVAC? Like, did you go to school for it or anything like that?
So, realistically, when I got out of high school, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I tried to look into college, and at the time, college was probably not an option because I couldn't really get financial aid, and I couldn't get and I had to pay out of state tuition because I didn't have any I was undocumented at the time.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so I got out of high school. I couldn't do anything with that.
Where are you
But
from originally?
Mexico,
Oh, okay. I have family there.
yeah. Oh yeah, you have Mexican family or just family that lives there?
Yeah, my grandparents and I have like an uncle or two that are from there.
Oh, gotcha, gotcha. Cool,
So I
cool.
used to go over. I live in Texas, like right at the border, South Texas, Progreso and all that. Like I used to walk over a lot. I don't want to go over too much anymore, just because it's not as safe as it used to be. But yeah, we used to go over all the time. We had family over there.
Oh, cool, cool. Yeah, so I found the school that did HVAC, and I realistically was just like actually I went to the school and they had HVAC, electrical, and plumbing, and mechanics. I was also interested in mechanics at the time, like car mechanics.
Yeah.
And what I did is I literally went to the counselor and I was like, which of all this is the shortest? Like the shortest, like, and then she said AC. So, because during the day AC was 1 year, all the other ones were like 2 years during the day, like 3 or 4 years during, like if you just went at night or
Okay.
whatever, if I remember correctly. I don't know why. So I joined the AC one. And then the whole incident happened. I got kicked out of school. And then I just started working. That was back in 2006 because I only lasted like 3 months in the school before that happened. So I went
Did
to
something happen or?
I punched somebody,
Oh, okay.
and
Well,
I'm not a high school student anymore. So you
yeah.
don't just get suspension. They were like, yeah, that's a no. They were like, you're lucky we're not like the guy's not pressing charges or nothing happened. Even though he started the whole thing, but that's neither here nor there. I should not have done what I did. Whatever. Anyway, the point is, I started working, and then I just went into ductwork, and I remained in ductwork probably like 4 or 5 years before I switched into more of an install. It was still I was still doing a lot of duct work, but at the end of it, I would remain there to hook up thermostats, start up the units, make sure they're working right, test smoke detectors and stuff like that. And the more I did of that, the more I was like, wait a minute, I feel like service would be cooler. I get to actually see when they're not working and why. Okay. So I applied to a service company that did commercial and residential. But as soon as I started working there, I guess they saw that I enjoyed commercial a lot more, and it was just like I was better at it, so they kept me a lot more on their commercial accounts. And every now and then I would do a residential call, and which wasn't bad. But what I noticed was that I started falling down the rabbit hole of quoting everything because I was just trying to make that quote money.
So like getting sales and stuff.
Yeah. I was sometimes like just upselling shit that didn't need to be upsold. I mean, I was always the one with the most quotes. I was always making the biggest bonuses, but I didn't like myself, man. I'm gonna be honest. I hated myself the whole time. I was like, I don't like what I'm doing.
I know. I talked to a guy recently on here, and he rode with somebody that was like, they took advantage of like an old lady that couldn't even make a car payment or something. I forgot what it was. But they made the sale, and the guy was like super excited when they got in the van. And the guy that I talked to that I had on the show was like, I felt horrible and I quit that week. Like, he couldn't take it.
Yeah. No, and to be honest with you, I didn't quit. I should have, but I didn't.
Well, because you're trained to do that, honestly.
Yeah.
Or they push it.
What ended up happening was that I was able to fix my status. But to fix my status, I had to go to Mexico. And for whatever reason, I don't know why, the owner thought that I was trying to leave him to go to another company, and I was doing it like in a sneaky way or something. Even though I showed him the paperwork and everything, he still didn't believe me. So we kind of just started kind of going at it too much. And then one day I was just like, all right, fuck this place, I'm out. And I just left. But I wish I would have left because of the uncomfort feeling I was getting from doing all those upsells. Instead, I did it from that.
It still bothered you. I mean, that does mean something.
Yeah, no, definitely. And then it was good because after that, I jumped into full commercial, and it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. Then I just started doing little air-cooled chillers, chill water, air handlers and RTUs, VAVs, and then I was like, holy crap, there's a whole world out here for much more interesting things.
That's what I tell people. I'm like, you don't have to just do install, service, or even just residential. Like, there's a whole bunch of stuff you can do, and you're a good example of that because you've kind of dipped into different like corners of the trade, and then like you worked your way up to like bigger and bigger stuff.
One thing I do want to say, because I feel like a lot of guys focus a lot on the money, which is fine. You definitely should focus on the money.
That's a main question I get.
But I think that I've met guys that do residential that because of their bonuses and stuff, sometimes they make as much as me or even more than me.
Yeah.
And that's when you need to, I think, have a conversation with yourself and be like, okay, do I really enjoy this field? Do I enjoy working on things? Do I want to challenge myself and work on things I don't understand? Do I want to learn things, new things, maybe at least once a year or a couple times a year and up those skills because it makes me feel good? And if that's the case, then I would say, yes, focus on the money, but focus on getting that money through your skills and not through your sales tactics or whatever. And if that's not important to you, that's also okay. But then just have that honest conversation with yourself and say, okay, commercial is not for me, or these big jobs are not for me. I'm going to stick to which you could still go on the big jobs and just be a salesman. I mean, it's also possible, but you can go that route. You can go any route you want, but you need to have that conversation with yourself and see how you want to manage that. For me, skills and learning things is just much more valuable than any money I can make. So I've taken jobs that paid me less sometimes just because I knew I was going to learn something new.
See, that's what I try to tell people, because that's one of the main questions I get is like, how much can I make? How do I make more money? Like all this other stuff. And I'm like, it'll come, right? You can get it, but like, what do you want to be doing? Cause like, I'm very comfortable. I live a pretty good life. I bought a house, I bought plenty of vehicles. Like I have no issue there. And I did it on a low income. Like I wasn't getting paid crazy big bucks, for the longest time. So like managing your money, it depends on where you live too. All that stuff factors in. But I love what I do. I wouldn't want to leave kitchen refrigeration because that's just where I ended up, and that's what I like to do. I like the variety of it, the problems that we see, all that stuff that makes me enjoy my job. So that's a big deal for me. And then the other question I get is like, because I run a business, is like, growing or expanding, or do I want to do this or that with the business? And I'm like, I don't want to be a super big business, have that kind of headache of managing so many people and stuff like that. Like, that's just me. If you want to do that, cool. I like having my weekends off. I like being home for dinner, stuff like that. That people always talk about the money, but like your free time and your enjoyment, like you said, is also like important, and that's worth something too.
Yeah, I couldn't run a business. I've said it before. I've said it on comment sections. I've said it on messages. Sometimes people ask me, "Why don't you run your own thing?" I'm like, I can't. And I'm gonna give you two main reasons. One is I really do genuinely enjoy learning new shit. Like I love it. And the best way to learn new things, for example, like I read a lot of books, right? But sometimes as I'm reading, there's certain things I just don't understand. And sometimes I'll go into forums or I'll go into college papers that talk about the certain things from the book or aspects of the ideas or the social the what do you call it, the philosophy of it or whatever, to try to better understand it. But still I feel like I lack because I just don't have the education for it, right? And the same thing comes for work. The difference with work is that in my field I get a chance to work on certain things that I learn. So if I learn about humidity or how humidity affects temperature, I can work into systems that do reheat, for example, and I can learn how that better. What's the most efficient way to do reheat? And I actually get to test it and see it, and you learn much better when you can actually work on it. So because I love that aspect so much, I love learning so much, I know that if I was to open my own company, that would get restricted because I'm only going to get a chance to work on certain things unless I get really big, which if we're honest with one another, the chances of every company blowing up and becoming a massive JCI type of company are very small.
Oh yeah, there's only a handful of them.
Yeah, you don't get like that, and when you don't get that big, you don't get to work on as varied. For example, if you open a company and you get to do a lot of chillers, you might only get to do a lot of chillers, and that's it. If you start a company and you get to do a lot of VAVs, you might end up doing only VAVs and only air handlers or whatever it might be.
It's like me.
So I feel like
I only do kitchen refrigeration, and I try to stick to it.
Yeah, and I think it's fine, but I think with my personality, I would get really bored really fast. That's one aspect. The second aspect is that you've seen me from my interactions on social media. I don't have a lot of patience. And this applies to customers as well. And in the environment I work in commercial work, I can get away with being rude a little bit sometimes, as long as I don't take it too far. I'm not gonna be cursing at a customer.
I've caught myself saying things that I probably shouldn't. Not like you said, not cursing or anything, but I'm like, you kind of be upfront with them a little more.
Right. And I think because of that, and the fact that I don't own the company, I feel more comfortable doing that. If I owned the company, if it was my own company, I think I'd be restricting myself a lot on that, which I think it would ultimately lead me to either getting anxious or depressed or something, because I've tried my whole life to control it. And
we have to bite our lips sometimes. I get it.
Yeah, and again, I think all of that those two things add up to why I know for a fact that if I try to open my own company, it would be a disaster.
That's a hard part. My dad started our company, and he does like the cooking equipment, right? The fryers and all that. And I do the AC refrigeration side. And when I started, and I also saw this when I went to school, because like we had several teachers, like half of them ran a business and then half of them worked like either for the school, like they kind of did like the chillers or whatever it was, or they worked somewhere. And I was like, man, I thought everybody wanted to open up their own business and do it that way. But like I learned, like, some people want to deal with it. Some people don't. They just want to, you know, clock in and out. And then, like you said, you might get other chances to do other things and stuff like that. So I learned that early on. And then like now, because when I started, I just wanted to get in and out. I was, like I said, in my early 20s. I wanted to go out with my friends. I wanted to go do this, do that. I didn't care about working late or anything like that. So like in the beginning, I wanted to be more of an employee. Obviously, as time goes on, I have to do more and more of the business side, you know, to kind of take over that. And it's a lot. I've had to change quite a bit, even my personality. And I'm an introvert. I don't like people sometimes. And I've gotten complaints when I go and I don't talk to anybody. I've gotten complaints. My dad's like, oh, they were saying that you were there, you didn't talk to them, and you didn't do this and that. I'm like, oh, geez, you know. So I had to learn how to do all that too, and it's a lot. It's a lot, dude. So going from like place to place, or like building up in your career and all the different things that you've seen, like how did you get into the control side, or why did you get into that?
So I've liked controls for a very long time. So first time I saw controls, I was doing a job installing VAVs, and some guy came in with his little ladder and a laptop, put his laptop on the ladder, hooked up a wire to it, and I went up to him. I'm like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Oh, I'm programming all these things." I'm like, "Oh." I'm like, I saw the control boards, but when I install units with control boards, they just do their thing. They're like, yeah, no, here we have to set them all up. We have to whatever. And I think he worked for Denso Controls. And I remember asking, how do you even get into that? But they were not very helpful. I'll tell you that. I ran into a bunch of controls guys through my life. None of them, I feel like none of them wanted to help me get in. Like, because I asked questions and they just didn't give me a straight answer ever. Okay. So anyway, but since then I liked it. And then through the years, I took some programming classes without knowing. Had nothing to do with the type of programming that PLCs and DVCs get programmed with. Yeah. But it gave me an idea of the language behind it, you know, of the ifs and thens and logics and even PID loops and things like that. I sort of understood what it meant. Then just Googling stuff online, I found out that PLCs get programmed sometimes with like ladder logic and stuff like that. So I would watch videos. I ended up getting a program at some point I tried some things with. And then at some point I was like, you know what, let me apply. So I applied a couple times to companies that did controls. And the 3 times that I applied, they tried cutting my pay by like $10,000 to get in. So even though I really wanted it, it was just too much, the pay cut they were trying to give me. And then I was working for another company. They had a controls side. I asked them if they would be willing to transfer me to controls. And they said no. They're like, no, you're too valuable as a service tech. We're not going to do that. Oh, man. They literally said that to me. I don't know if they meant to. They thought that was gonna make me feel complimented and want to stay. Yeah. But that just pissed me off. So I started looking, and I happened to see an ad for JCI, but it was for Tampa, and I was in Miami at the time. But I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I applied. Manager gets back to me. He's like, hey, you know, so what's your experience? I told him all my experience, and then I said, as you can see, I do understand controls. I know what they're at, but I've never programmed anything. I don't know anything about networking. I know it involves it. I know it involves this and that. I really want to get in. I was like, I really think you should give me a chance. I was like, I promise you, like in a couple months, I'll be one of your best techs. He kind of laughed about it, but he was like, what do you want for money? I was like, look, if you can keep me where I'm at, I'm happy. Okay. He was like, all right, I'll get back to you. He actually didn't call me back for like a month, so I thought he was doomed. But then he called me back. He's like, hey, so you wanted this much, right? I'm like, yeah. He's like, okay. Come on in. When can you do it? And then I bought a house in Tampa, and I left my family in Miami, because at first I was gonna rent a room or something just to work here and go back on the weekends. Oh, okay. But then we realized it was smarter if I bought a house and rented the rooms in my house, so that the house would pay for itself and I could have somewhere to stay. So that's what I did, and then I would just go back on the weekends over there. And yeah, and in 3 months, man, I'm. You're going to think I'm full of shit, but in 3 months, actually, I disappeared from Instagram during that time. I don't know if anyone noticed, but I was gone for like a year. But it was because I was
actually thought you just like quit the whole Instagram thing.
Yeah, no, it was, I remember I was like at 7,000 followers, and then I just stopped and I lost a bunch of followers. But it was because I was focusing on doing nothing but learning every fucking thing I could learn about this. And then I joined I just started like working my ass off, and then I remember I called him like within 3 months. I was like, "Hey, remember I told you I was going to be one of your best techs?" He just laughs, and I'm like, "So can I get some more money for becoming one of your best techs?" And he
Mm-hmm.
laughed, but he gave it to me. He actually gave me a raise.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I am definitely right now. Not just me saying it. Like I've heard it from managers and stuff that I'm definitely up there. So it took me what 4 years. So it's doable. You just need
It's
to like.
yeah, if you put in the effort and the time and like yeah, the grind. So like, is it hard to pick up because like I've seen the control side and I've seen what you do and it looks like it looks fun, it looks interesting, but it looks like gibberish to me.
I I wouldn't say it's hard. I The thing is, nothing is hard in life. I think we only find things hard when we really don't want to do them and we feel a little bit forced. But I think when you enjoy things, like nothing is hard. Like if you find a way to do something and enjoy it, like it's fun. It's fun. Like you start, like at the beginning, I was overwhelmed. I was very overwhelmed because it was a
I
lot of
guess that's
information.
what my question would be because I've asked people that do like a big change because I feel like controls is a big change. Like
It was, yeah.
how overwhelming is it?
It was overwhelming because there was a lot of information coming in. All of a sudden, I had to understand what a server was and how it worked with our system. I had to understand at least the principles of like networks and how they work. I had to understand that how RSA 45 and RS 232 work and all those little things, and put them all together. And it was just too much information coming in. But what I did that I think helped me a lot, and maybe people can take this information and take advantage of it, was that I started focusing when I was really overwhelmed at the beginning. I focused on using my mechanical skills to solve those control problems. So, to give you an example, if I showed up to a chiller and the chillers are not running for some reason, I honestly will ignore the program like it didn't exist, and I would focus on looking at the equipment and trying to figure out why is the equipment not running. And it would take me longer because I would have to look at every valve visually, and I would have to, maybe command things on to try to see what's not turning on. And it took me longer now than it does now when I can look at the program and see on the program why something is not happening. But I was able to mechanically fix so many things. And by doing that, I little by little started learning backwards. So I actually learned
Okay.
to understand the programs backwards from the mechanical side into the program, if it makes sense.
No, that's
That's
a
how
good
I
way.
did it.
That's a good way to
Yeah.
do it because it's better when you understand the whole thing instead of just like you said the program or whatever it is. You understand the system and the mechanical parts and everything.
Yeah, it's very valuable.
Because even like me, like I live in an area that gets a lot of I work on a lot of old equipment, right? So like I'm still seeing a lot of mechanical stuff. We started seeing electronic stuff maybe like a year, maybe 2 years ago, and then I had to learn all of that, right? Transducers, sensors, whatever it is, everything had a board in it, and I just wasn't used to it. So, like you said, it's you kind of lean on what you know, right? You know the mechanical side, or you know what it should be doing, or this and that. So that's how I kind of because I just ran into another one. I think it was yesterday that I've never seen before. It was all electronic. Like it was a small reach-in cooler, but it had so much stuff crammed into it, right? And I'm like, I don't know how the hell this thing works, right? But I just opened it up. I'm like, okay, this is a switch. This should do this. This should do that. Just start checking voltage, and sure enough, it had a faulty controller. So it's whatever. Like you know the basics, or you know how a system should work. Just lean into that, and then, like you said, you just kind of figure out the rest.
And I know a lot of mechanics do it just like you just described. A lot of mechanics will work on units that have control boards, computer boards in there that are complicated, that have a bunch of sensors coming in and stuff, and they fix them. They're able to fix them without understanding exactly how the board works.
Yeah.
So when you comes to controls, you can do the exact same thing. But I think sometimes people just get tripped up. Like I had a mechanic yesterday. He was on a call. I took a call from like my own call, like around 1 a.m., which is how I noticed I had this call for this morning. But he calls me like actually it was actually like 11 p.m. But we went all the way to like 1 a.m. He called me. He's like, "Hey, I have this unit not running. You want me to put in a ticket so you can come and look at it?" I was like, "No. Like, why is it not running?" It's
Okay.
well, the drive says that it's got like starting inhibit. I'm like, that's an alarm. It has this little reset button for the high and low pressure. He does it. He's like, no, they didn't pop. They're fine. I'm like, it's probably a freestat. And he's like, oh, well, you want to come look at it? I'm like, no, I'm not gonna make a 1 hour drive to go look at something when you're. I was like, give me a minute. So I logged on my computer, and I see freestat. I'm like, dude, it's a freestat.
Okay.
So he opens the thing. He's like, oh, there's 2 freestats. I'm like, yeah, I don't know which one it is. They're probably in series. So just open both of them up, jump both of them, and it'll be one of them. And in fact, he jumped it. The alarm went away, and boom, the drive started right up. So I know for a fact that JCI guys sometimes are, I think, a little spoiled because they can just call controls to go look at things like that. Where if you work with a company that works with an outside controls company, sometimes you end up diagnosing those things yourself. But a freestat, come on, let's be honest, a freestat, even if it goes through my controller, you know that that's something a mechanic should be able to spot. Like, why is your unit not running? There's a safety. Where's the safety? Look at all of them. I mean, there's only so many of them, you know. So it's
I guess because that's what I've told people on the light commercial side, maybe the residential side. I never thought about it like on that kind of level, like what you do, but I guess it just pertains, all across the board. Like there's a cycle, there is a system, right? It's just in every, like when you go to light commercial to residential, industrial, it's just what's in between safeties. A lot of it's like similar. You just have to think about it. Like when the easiest way I learned when I started was like, when I realized everything was like a switch or everything was, this or that, like you don't look at it and be like, oh my God, it has like a board. It has like, all this stuff. You just look at it like, okay, that's the controller. This is a safety. This is a switch. They all do the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, sure. There's sometimes, yes, like my program might be doing something weird, and then at that point, it's definitely a controls issue. But I don't think like temperature sensors, and even if they're hooked up to my controller, the fact that I'm out there like just changing temperature sensors and diagnosing those things, it's a little wild to me. It's like when I was a mechanic, I did it myself. Like never call a controls guy to come and change things like that for me. So I don't mind doing it.
Just because it looks a little different now, like I said, like transducers, like that was new to me, but it's a pressure switch. That's all it is.
But even that, like I remember I worked one time. I was at a Target, and Target has this energy management company that does all their energy management, and they usually hire different HVAC contractors to do the equipment. I was one of those contractors. I was working on a unit. The unit keeps failing, but I check everything. All my safeties within my unit are good, but the unit it'll start up for a few minutes every time I reset it, and then it just shuts down. So I called the EMS, and I'm like, because sometimes also controls guys suck, let's be honest. So I called them, and I'm like, look, my unit, everything looks great on it, but it keeps shutting down. Why is it shutting down? They're like, oh, we don't know. You're going to need to figure that out. I'm like, no. I don't have eyes on what you have eyes. Can you tell me what you see? They're like, no, we don't see anything. I'm like, there's no alarms, there's nothing. They're like, no. So I'm sitting there, I'm on the phone, I'm like, there's gotta be something. And then I'm like, you know what? Do me a favor. I saw there was transducers on there. So then they read me the high head pressure, and it was reading like 700 psi or something. I'm like, you don't have 700 psi. That's your problem. Your system is shutting down because it thinks it has high head pressure.
Yeah.
So she's the lady's like, oh, okay. I'm like, can you override that? Can you do something to that? So she overrode it to like 0 or something. I can't remember. And the unit started right up. So, but that's something that even though I wasn't a controls guy at the time, I still was able to figure out just out of deducing that all my safety switches are good. Everything on the unit that I've checked was good. My pressures are good. I have refrigerant. I have a fan. I don't have anything open. So it has to be something in the program that's holding the unit back, even if I don't know what that one thing is.
I had the same situation a couple of weeks ago because I had a new install for like a newer unit that had a board, transducers, everything. And I was like, everything's working fine. Like, I don't know what's going on. Then I decided to check in the evaporator. It was a walk-in cooler, I think. Yeah. In the evaporator, I had to check the program because, it does its own thing. It checks based on the sensors and everything. So I'm like, okay, let me check superheat with my probes and everything. And then let me see what the program thinks it's doing. And the transducer was like way off. It was trying to maintain like a superheat, and it was getting the wrong reading. So I was like, okay, because I was like, everything else was fine. Everything else, like I didn't mess up. I thought I messed up, and then I I had to double check against the what it was reading basically.
Yeah. No, and yeah. Again, I think my best advice I can give to anyone that wants to get into controls is like, just do it, man. Just start applying. If anything, if you want to beef up your resume, go online, do some research on just what controls is, what PLCs are, what DDCs. If you get like a firm grasp on what it is, even if you don't work on it, and you have really strong mechanical skills, you can talk your way in, and you can get in. It's just like when I did it, when I tried, I honestly didn't even know what a PLC was. It wasn't until after I researched it that I was able to kind of talk better about it, and then employers were more willing to take me. And there's plenty of companies out there right now willing to hire people. They need people.
Yeah, you just got to
My
look.
company is desperate right now to get guys in. Like my branch right now, they have all this growth they want to do. They want to get like 5 guys or something.
For controls or for anything else?
For controls. Well, I don't know. Maybe for other things too, but I would have to find out. But I know for controls for sure.
Yeah. Well, maybe people will go and check you out and get in contact with you. But before we sign off, because we've been on for over an hour.
Sorry, man. Yeah.
No, it's fine. As far as like controls, like what do you? I don't know. What do you like about it the most, or why would somebody want to get into controls? Like, what are the benefits from what you've done before? Like, what do you enjoy about it?
The most obvious benefit that I will always cherish is that I am barely ever working on a roof. I am barely ever like being exposed to dangerous conditions.
Yeah.
Realistically. I get to work much less with my body, which is a pro and a bad, because I've lost a bunch of muscle. I've gotten weaker considerably. Like I notice it when I do sometimes, like my girl likes doing acro yoga and stuff, and I used to be able to hold her up and do things like whatever, and now I struggle. Like I really struggle doing certain things. So I was like, I need to hit the gym or something.
That's what I was thinking. I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, man, I need to start working out again.
Yeah, I need to do something. But before, I didn't even have to go to the gym. I just I looked fit, even though I wasn't working out, just because of all the work I was pulling compressors up on roofs and doing things like that. I don't do that anymore. Anyway, so that's a pro. Another pro would be that, for me at least anyway, is that I feel like at least once a week I get really, really, really challenged, like mentally, where I hit at least this one job that takes me hours to figure out what's happening. And I really enjoy that side of it. And even the few times where I don't run into something like that, I get the leisure to sit sometimes on a job and research something that I'm trying to understand better. Mm-hmm. That's about the job. Like I may work in a chiller plant that has a different module in it that I've never seen before, and then I'll do a bunch of digging on the module just to better understand why whatever happened. So it's given me an opportunity to learn a lot of new cool things about the field. And I guess lastly, the third thing would be that I don't know, I get to experience a completely different world than what I've been used to the past 18 years, or the past, well, now it's been 4 years here, but it still feels so new. This is the first time where I've been because I've worked for different companies through the years, and I always get really bored. This is the first time in my life where I've been on something where not only am I not bored, but I feel like I don't even know enough to get bored.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
I wasn't sure about before. Yeah, I wasn't sure about that part, because like the reason I do what I do is because I don't like being in one place too long and getting bored. But that's really what it is. I didn't know if the control side kept you, I guess, doing like busy enough or like thinking enough to make sure that you didn't get bored. All right, man. Well, I appreciate you taking the time. I know you're stopping after work to sit down here, but I appreciate you coming on the show.
All right. Thank you for having me.
Everybody watching and listening, thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next time.